Well, one of Kenya's neighbours seems to be getting this right. 24 years since its dark history of genocide, Rwanda has made strides beyond its East African peers in what appears deliberate organisation of public affairs. The public transport system in Kigali shows all manner of possibilities in streamlining the historical chaotic sector. Sam Gituku was in Kigali recently and filed this report.
The nature of public transit system, the rich convenience and frequency of transport services tell a lot about a city and a society. It is one of the biggest struggles that cities have to deal with across the world. And when a city gets it right, the dividends are immense. Rwanda, a hilly state, complicated terrain, limited space for roads, yet the city keeps moving. Once upon a time, Kigali was a typical East African city of traffic jams, chaotic, and most of the time inconvenient public transit system, of unruly matatu operators that ruled the jungle.
Walikuwa wanatumia watu ambao wanaita matandiboi ambao walikuwa hana adabu hata kidogo. Alikuwa anasimama juu yako, afu na nguo zenyewe ni chafu, afu anaongea maneno ambayo sio mazuri kwa abiria. Lakini sasa hivi kutokana kwamba hakuna tandiboi.
This is the Kigali Town Service bus park, the nerve center of moving Kigali. Notice the silence, the neat paths, the clearly marked route numbers, and the commuters orderly in queue waiting for their turn. Kigali city is divided into 4 zones, each zone allocated to one public transport operator. Their responsibility is to supply conducive mass movement buses for all the routes in a zone. There are a total of 500 buses that move Kigali. Time allocation at the park is strict.
Usually there is a 5 minutes interval for buses on trunk loads during peak hours and 15 minutes interval for trunk loads during off-peak periods.
So it's not mandatory that a bus can only leave the station once it's full?
No, it's not mandatory. They have to just observe the 15 minutes because we have inspectors who penalize them. Actually, we give them demerits. Once they reach 100, then they are fined for that. So they have to make sure that they observe the set intervals.
The operations of matatus are overseen by the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority, an institution that controls and supervises crucial public utilities from transport to telecommunication, garbage collection, water, electricity and petroleum prices. RURA sets the prices for all these services. And so for all matatus in Rwanda, the fare prices are set and enforced by the authority.
Kenya, wakati kuna mvua most, saa unajua kuna barabara mbaya, but huku kuna difference. Huku barabara ni mzuri, so fare haimati wakati kumenyesha ama wakati hakunyeshi.
For instance, for bus companies that go up country, there is a chart in a bus that shows how much you pay for every stop that bus makes on the way. And if the companies want to increase them, they have to apply to RURA. RURA must authorize them.
Each of the buses in Rwanda has several hotline numbers to call for help. There is that for the regulator, for police, for the bus company, for the ambulance. So if a passenger is overcharged and they're in a bus, they call any of the 3, and then they have to work together to make sure that the driver is held accountable.
To enforce that, commuters in Kigali must acquire a smart travel card, load it with cash at depositing agents, and board a bus of their route. The system has been running for the past few years and has so far proven efficient. No matatu turn boys or conductors are needed, no touts shouting about routes and fares.
Before, people used to scramble in order to enter the buses, and most of the time it resulted into theft cases. You know, some people trying to touch in some people's bags. But nowadays, it has resulted into more security. Now people are more organized.
While Nairobi is still struggling with the fate of smaller capacity matatus like the 14-seaters, Rwanda blocked them from the city commuter services. Instead, they have to do up-country movement. And thus there is Nyabugogo bus park for that. And here, all buses connecting Kigali to the rest of the country and even beyond borders converge. The 14-seaters managed under SACCO system pick and drop their travelers here. While the Kigali city commuting appears sophisticated, the matatus here reflect Kenya's past. Safety belts not visible. The interior design of some of the vans are contrast to the Kenyan matatus. But the benefits of common regulatory system still accrue.
Say, if you're going to the northwest to, say, a town called Ruhengeri, you can buy tickets for the bus at 10 or at 12 or at 11. Now, if you bought the ticket for the bus that departs at 10, you must be there at 10. If you miss the bus, you buy another ticket. So the bus leaves at 10, even if there's one passenger in it, or two passengers or three. So it doesn't wait to fill up, but it picks up other passengers at the different points, again on the time as stipulated on the ticket.
For the past 3 months, fuel prices have remained the same as set by RURA. The transport fares have similarly remained constant. Even when fuel prices will be reviewed, the authority's transport department must assess whether the change will be significant enough to affect the fare prices. Some in Kenya may argue that this goes against the spirit of a free market, but the country has found a solution to a previously unruly sector. The system is so elaborate, so much so that even as students return to school at the beginning of a term, the regulators spearheads talks with operators to determine which regions will resume school when. And with that, sufficient matatus are rerouted to serve the said region.
So we dispatch teams to different areas to make sure that students are being transported safely. And the other system we've put in place is to have different districts open schools on different days.
But Rwanda is a small country, just slightly larger than Isiolo County of Kenya at 26,338 square kilometers with a population of 12 million compared to Kenya's 45 million. Some may argue it becomes easier to manage.
So what do you think Nairobi and Kampala should learn from Kigali?
Well, what they should learn, I think, it is law enforcement is the most important thing. We have the same laws as the government of Rwanda has, that you can't drive on the pavement or park on the pavement. But in Kampala and Nairobi, people do. They do with impunity. Now here, it's the same laws. The difference is in enforcement.
Still, Kigali has allowed motorcycle taxis, popularly known as boda boda, to ply the city. Only that here they must be orderly. Each rider wears a reflected jacket of a color representing their base. It becomes easy to track crime incidences to the perpetrators. Unlike Nairobi, riders in Kigali observe traffic lights and rules. They must stick to their lane and stop when required.
The only problem in the sense that there are many. So they compete with the cars for the road, but they also don't ride on pavements, or they don't ride in the opposite direction. So in Kampala you'll see boda bodas which are going in one direction, riding on the wrong side of the road. Now that doesn't happen here.
The middle class has been reported to shun the public transport system, choosing comfort over mass movement. And as Kigali strives to improve the service to attract more middle-class customers, the lesson is out for East African peers like Kenya that has struggled with the important service for decades. Granted, Rwanda still has dozens of challenges to deal with in addressing the issues that affect the population. However, the progressive investment into the improvement of the public transport and the deployment of technology in managing it is one sure thing, one less problem to deal with. Sam Gituku, TV, Kigali, Rwanda.